Ladies and gentlemen, I got some absolute gold right here. And on my channel, I usually will rank action combat systems by the end of the year. I usually do the best action combat systems of every year. I've done a lot of like underrated gems that have really good action combat, and I actually haven't made many turn-based combat videos, which I do love turn-based combat. Not as much as action, but it's still a really fun type of combat system I definitely get into, and I played a lot of bangers this year. Specifically, these 8 were actually incredible, and I want to go over each of the combat systems, how amazing they were, how awesome these games were, and I think this is pretty much all I'll play turn-based wise for the rest of the year. There's nothing really else coming out besides Octopath Traveler 0, which I haven't played 1 or 2, so I'm gonna pick it up, but I'm not gonna be playing it right away. I still want to play 1 and 2, so I'm gonna go over the best turn-based combat systems I played this year, how much I love them, and hopefully you guys find some gems that you could hop into yourself, or just enjoy me talking about some of my favorite games of 2025. So the first RPG with turn-based combat I want to talk about is Digimon Time Stranger. So I've never played Digimon. I never watched any of the Digimon anime growing up. I was always a Pokemon nerd, right? I was Pokemon over Digimon. But it always looked interesting to me, especially because it looks more like a JRPG than Pokemon, right? Like Pokemon is technically a JRPG, but this has a bit more adult themes in it. Looks like it has more deep storylines in terms of the games and anime. And overall, the promotional material for this game looked insane. Like, a lot of people, including me watching it, was like, this game kind of looks like they're cooking. So, did they? And in my opinion, they absolutely did. This has been such a joyous adventure so far, and the combat gets really intense. One thing I'm so surprised about is how hard it is. Like, I'm on normal mode, and, you know, most of the normal casual battles you get into are totally fine. They're kind of there just the team build. But when you get to the main story bosses, dude, they will test you. And if your team is not built correctly or you don't understand the ins and outs of this combat system, you'll get destroyed. And I really loved that because there's a lot to this. There's weaknesses, resistances, all the stuff you would kind of find in Pokemon or other turn-based games, but there's also personality types which your Digimon will have, and that plays a role into it. And then there's Digivolving, which has a lot more to it than how Pokemon evolve. You basically have to get the right stats, the right prerequisites, and then they'll evolve into something special. So it's a lot of team building, which was so much fun, and in general, the mechanics of this turn-based combat is really fun. A couple things I love is the fact you could use items or change Digimon and it doesn't take a turn. This is cool, and it may seem like it makes it a lot easier, but with how hard the bosses are, it balances it out really good. There's also special moves you can use with your player characters. So one good thing I love to do is get ready for a specific phase of a boss and save up my special move, and then they'll just whip out the gun and blow up the Digimon at the right moment. It's an extremely fun combat system. The highlight is definitely collecting and managing your Digimon team. There's so many to collect and build, and it's just an absolutely fun time. The next RPG I want to talk about is Atelier Resleriana, The Red Alchemist, and The White Guardian. These games always have ridiculously long titles, but this game specifically, look how amazing the cover art is. It's really nice because I still have it sealed, because Koei Tecmo actually sent me a review code, which they're awesome for doing that, but I of course still got the game because I'm a nerd and I want to have it in my collection, so that's staying sealed. But no joke, Atelier Resleriana probably has my favorite turn-based combat system I've played this year, and to be honest, one of the best I've ever played. I'm not joking when I say that. This is one of the most fun and in-depth turn-based combat systems I have played of all time. And I say that for a few reasons. One, the combat animations are beautiful. All the characters' special moves are insanely fun to watch. And you also use your back row almost as much as your front row, so it feels like everyone is participating. There's multi-use attacks where you can use up to 4 different people where they do their strings of attacks, and it's just so fun to strategize because you could do the first one, lower the defense. The second one, make them less resistant to lightning. And then use your lightning character for the third one, and you just watch them all attack at the same time, and it's incredibly fun. They also did one of my favorite things when you're on the defensive, and that's blocking moves. So if you perfect block an enemy's move, you're going to negate most of the damage and even all the status ailments. I love this. We've seen that in Expedition 33 this year, and it's definitely not as intense as Expedition 33, but I still love that. I love a little bit of reactivity in turn-based combat. It helps you just not stand there on a defensive. You actually have to participate. Plus, the synthesizing and alchemy is incredible in this game. I know Joke would be there for 3 hours just trying to make the craziest equipment or the craziest items. And then again, if you use the multi-action in battle and you throw a bunch of different items together, it's just going to create something even crazier at the end. So there's an incredible amount of strategy, an incredible amount of ways you can tackle battles, and the balance is just really good. It's not too easy, it's not too hard. So it was always a fun time in this game. Genuinely amazing. The next game on my list, which you could maybe guess because I mentioned it, talking about Atelier, and it's Expedition 33. Most people's game of the year. I don't know if it's exactly my game of the year. It's right up there with the first Berserker Kazan. But this game is incredible. The turn-based works so well, in my opinion, because when you're on the offensive, it has everything you could want in a turn-based game, right? Amazing team building, everyone playing completely unique from each other, fun enemies to fight. And then the defensive, especially for me, was really cool. Everyone knows the dodge and parry system from Expedition 33, and yeah, I had an absolute blast with it, especially because if you know me, you know I love Souls games and action RPGs, and in general, reaction-based gameplay. So memorizing these enemies' movesets, getting perfect parries, and watching you dish that damage back out to the enemy was incredibly fun. Obviously, this game doesn't play anything like a Souls game, but when you're on the defensive, memorizing those patterns, it's the same type of thing. Nothing is more fun to me than getting a 10-hit combo parried back at the enemy. It brings a lot of satisfaction and is incredibly fun. The next game I want to talk about is Trails in the Sky the First, the remake of Trails in the Sky. And this game is so cool. It is probably one of my favorite remakes of all time. They just did a perfect job at keeping the charm and the atmosphere of the original, but adding in new systems to make it very fresh. And in general, it's really cool to see the characters in 3D doing these awesome animations. Their new engine and the animators in general went insane. Like, the moves they pull off in this game are fun to watch every single time. I don't know how you could ever put it on turbo mode. Again, it's really cool that they kept everything from the quartz to the orb mints to the S-crafts, pretty much all the stuff from the original game, but then they took a lot of their new mechanics from their newer Trails games and implemented it here and just made it feel like the original, but with a lot more oomph. One of the big differences is obviously it starts out as action-based, and there's not too much to this. It feels really good to smack enemies and dodge around, but you're pretty much just doing it to stun the enemy and then get a preemptive strike, which just gives you a big boost at the beginning of battle. So it's really fun, especially to see all the old moves that I saw in the original where they didn't have really crazy animations or anything, and then see them remade in this game and just watching them fly. It is so cool. I'm not sure if I just had an easier time through my first attempt at the original game, but this remake actually feels a bit harder, which I appreciate. You guys know me, I always love a challenge when it comes to a combat system, so I could learn everything about it. And yeah, Trails in the Sky the First actually feels harder than the original, which does really good for making you learn the combat system. Not every game here is actually a game that released in 2025, just all the turn-based RPGs I played in 2025. And one of them was Pokémon Scarlet, and it was such a long time since I played a Pokemon game, and I actually had a really good time with this one, but there's one big reason for that. You know, Pokemon is a really simple classic turn-based combat system that they haven't really upgraded over the years. It's more has to do with your team and how you build your Pokemon and if you know the weaknesses and your opponents. Now with Scarlet, the reason it was so fun for me is I played it on the Switch 2. I never actually played this originally when it came out, and I hopped on it after I got my Switch 2, and it transforms the game. It makes it in a flawless 60 FPS, which makes the battles really fun to watch because you could change the camera view as you're looking around these battles, and all the Pokemon look really nice, especially because they bumped the resolution a lot. So it, no joke, actually feels like how a next-gen Pokemon game is supposed to look. So it just made the experience so much more fun, especially because with the turn-based combat here, again, the most important thing is how you build your team. So going around and collecting and finding new Pokemon was was a complete treat in this because they're all just around the open world and you can catch them. And in the Switch 2 version, they actually updated the amount of Pokemon that are running around. So it was just really fun, and it brought me back to simpler times as a kid when I first ever tried a turn-based combat system. And it was a great time, dude. Now, the next game is actually known more for its crazy story than the combat system, but the 100-line Last Defense Academy is an overall just great game. The tactical combat in this is actually really well done, and it has one of my new favorite mechanics where you kill your teammates to give yourself an edge. Like if they're about to die, you could just completely destroy them to give yourself a super move to use. And then there's a whole thing with the story of how they kind of come back and you could keep using them. But it's a really interesting mechanic because you usually don't want your characters to die. But this game's like, go ahead, do it, let them die, you're gonna get a super move. It's really nice to have good combat in this game as well because it's more visual novel than full-fledged JRPG, so there's a lot of dialogue, which the story's amazing, like I said, so I didn't mind it, but it is really nice to have those breaks where you go into battle, and it's kind of like a tower defense as well. You either lose by all your teammates dying, or you lose if they break the generator that's guarding the school, so you can do a lot of cool things like put up fences and traps, and there's a lot of strategy involved in who you want to use and where you want to use them because they're trying to break into your school this whole time. So some enemies are good at guarding, some are good at pushing ahead and fighting. There's a lot of fun to this combat system. The next game on our list is Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. So I've heard so much praise for this game, it's kind of insane. Like if someone's talking about Final Fantasy Tactics, they're gonna say it's amazing. They're not gonna say it's just good. They're not gonna say it's bad. They're gonna be like, this game is peak. So I was really excited to try this game, and it's been really fun so far. It's really charming because the remake stuff they did for it, you know, brings the visuals up to more modern standards. There's more voice acting, there's a bunch of stuff like that, but it still has that PS1 era storybook look to it, which is really cool. I wouldn't say I know this combat system totally in depth yet, like the other ones on this list, because this is the newest game I'm playing right now, but it's been really fun so far, and I really like how you can kind of put your units anywhere. I mean, I'll have dudes over on the rooftops, some people over there in the river, like there's a lot of cool areas you can kind of go around in these turn-based battles. Overall, I'm really excited to finish the game and see in its entirety why people praise it so much. And the final game on this list is Monochrome Mobius, which I didn't know I even had this game. I was searching through my collection and I was like, oh, this cover art is really pretty. So I booted it up and wow, was I surprised how much I enjoyed this game. I actually just made a full review for it on my channel. If you want to watch that, I do reviews for pretty much all JRPGs, Souls games, things like that. So definitely check out my other videos and subscribe. It'll make my week. But this game was really cool and the turn-based combat was great. A lot of people actually compare it to Grandia, which I have not personally played, so I didn't get that comparison, but I had fun with these systems regardless. There's basically a ring on the side of your screen which shows how fast your enemies or you are going to get turns, and your main goal is getting to the inner rings, because the more inside of the ring you are, the more turns you're going to get before your enemies. So it was really fun managing all of that. All the characters play completely unique, and in general, this was just a really like adorable JRPG adventure that I had no idea this game existed. It's a prequel to the Utorero series, which crazy name, I know. If you want to hear more about that, definitely check out my review because I want to focus more on the combat systems in this video, but it's actually one of the best modern turn-based combat systems I've played in a while. I'm surprised I do not hear about this game much because it was a great time. And there you have it. Those are the best turn-based RPGs I've played in 2025. It was really fun making this list. It was a little bit of a different style, so let me know if you guys enjoy seeing my face more and kind of showing the games themselves, because I actually really enjoyed this. And normally I just put gameplay and talk about the games themselves. So yeah, let me know down below if you enjoyed this video and this style. Let me know some of your favorite turn-based RPGs of the year. You could just let me know in general what RPGs you've played this year and if you enjoyed them or not. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe you found something new, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.